For Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GBNews.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
I'm Mark Dolan, and it's time for Headliners. A first look at tomorrow's papers in the company of two top comedians this evening. None other than Josh Howie and Leo Kearse. Yes, we have splashed the cash. We have broken the bank, but you get what you pay for. I'll see you after the headlines from our news team.
Thanks, Mark. I'm Ray Addison in the GB newsroom. The Transport Secretary is accusing the Rail, Maritime and Transport Union of punishing millions of innocent people over planned strikes next week. Grant Shapps says the RMT has repeatedly ignored requests to negotiate a deal, and action scheduled for Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday will cause misery to the general public. However, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer says the government has been pouring petrol on the fire over its handling of the rail dispute. In a speech on Sunday, he'll say the government wants the country to grind to a halt so they can feed off the division. The Liberal Democrats are calling on Scotland Yard to reveal which two people failed to return questionnaires into lockdown parties in Downing Street and Whitehall. The Met Police say 204 were sent out during their inquiry and all but 2 were sent back. They also say failing to reply made no difference to whether they were issued with fixed penalty notices. However, the Lib Dems say it's important we find out if they evaded justice. In total, 126 fines were issued to 83 people, including the Prime Minister and the Chancellor. Electronic tags could be used to monitor migrants who cross the Channel in small boats or come to the UK in lorries. Under new government plans, adults requesting asylum will be placed on immigration bail as part of a 12-month pilot scheme in England and Wales. Anyone who breaks their bail conditions could be taken back to a detention centre or even prosecuted. And police in Brazil have arrested a third suspect in relation to the death of journalist Dom Phillips. Officials had earlier confirmed that human remains found in the Amazon rainforest were those of the Briton. A second body has now been identified as Indigenous expert Bruno Pereira. A local fisherman confessed to shooting the 2 men and has been charged with their murders. And finally, President Biden has reassured the public that he's fit and well after falling off his bike. Joe Biden was riding with his wife in Delaware when his foot got caught and he tumbled to the ground. The security services quickly helped the 79-year-old get back to his feet. Later, when asked how he was feeling, the US president took 3 small jumps to show that he was unharmed. The White House has also confirmed that no medical attention was needed. On TV, online and on DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now back to Headliners.
I'm Mark Dolan and welcome to Headliners, a first look at tomorrow's papers in the company of two top comedians. This evening, the brilliant Josh Howie and the marvellous Leo Kearse. Gentlemen, great to have you with us, and thank God the temperatures are sensible again.
Oh, God. Just human.
Well, we live in the United Kingdom. We didn't sign up for heat waves, did we?
Well, how did it turn into winter? It's suddenly gone from like 35 degrees to like 12 degrees. I didn't bring a jacket. I could die or get cold fingers.
Yeah, from Scotland, this is your natural habitat, surely.
I'm from Scotland, but I feel very Ghanaian in terms of what temperature I like.
That's what you dress like.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And you very much have the silhouette, let me tell you. Well, gentlemen, it's great to have you here. We've got some smoking hot stories for you, but first let's have a look at tomorrow's front pages. And we will start with the Sunday Telegraph, and here's what they're leading with. Unions bribing workers to strike. Britain's biggest trade unions have been accused by the Business Secretary, Kwasi Kwarteng, of bribing workers to go on strike after they doubled daily payments to those who take part in industrial action. Uneasy rider, Biden hits the road, Joe Biden falling off his bicycle. And Camilla, Charles and I are like ships that pass in the night, probably explains for their happy marriage. Independent next, Tory MPs by-election warning to Johnson. Tory MPs warn a double by-election defeat this week will pile further pressure on Boris Johnson's leadership as the embattled PM tries to move on from the Partygate scandal. Rebels say Mr Johnson would suffer a loss of authority if the Conservatives were to lose Tiverton and Honiton, which would require one of the largest upsets in a by-election in order to overturn the Tories. Observer next, new strike chaos as teachers and NHS staff warn of action on pay and migrants forced to pay thousands for UK care jobs. Sunday Mirror now, Dame Kelly, I am finally free to be me. Sports star reveals she has hidden being gay for 34 years and is now out and proud. Congratulations, Dame Kelly. Sunday Times, steel yourselves for a long war. PM warns the West. Allies urged to hold their nerve in relation to the conflict in Ukraine. We must prove to Putin that we are not fickle, says the Prime Minister. Top of the pops. To mark Father's Day tomorrow, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge released a photograph of Prince William with their children Charlotte, Louis and George. And end of the line for railway ticket offices as sales move online. Sunday Express next. Attorney General vows to complete Brexit, saying it's time to take control of our borders. And Daily Star Sunday. 7 years for World Cup fling. He shoots, he scores, he's jailed. Qatar will get tough on sex and booze. World Cup footy fans hoping for a bit of extra time in the bedroom are being warned you'll be in behind bars if you have sex outside of marriage. Qatar says strict laws will not be relaxed for Brit supporters. Blimey, that's a tournament in itself, isn't it? British fans celebrating the football. And those are your front pages. Josh, let's start with the Sun newspaper, and it's not looking good for the strikes. The rail strikes, they are coming.
They are coming. We knew they were coming, but they're really coming now. And it's going to kick in next week, kicks in on Tuesday, and it's basically going to mess up the whole of that week. It's going to cost the economy billions. Yeah. The hospitality industry is going to lose about $500 million. And it's lovely, though, that the General Secretary of the RMT, Mike Lynch, has, who, by the way, earns about £120,000 a year, so he's doing all right. He insisted that they don't want to cause misery. Well, they are going to cause misery for people who there are people who are trying to get to their exams, students. There are going to be people needing hospital appointments that they've had booked in forever. And he's basically said, we've got a cost of living crisis. Our workers have been working throughout the pandemic. I don't think that's 100% true. Like, there was definitely less services and stuff, so a lot of them weren't working to that level. Yeah. And none of them lost their jobs. And the fact is, he's also saying, that it's a blow. They want that their pay rises. They're saying they're below inflation. Well, guess what? Everybody's salaries are now below inflation. Nobody is getting that 11% that it would take to get up to there. And it's just infuriating. And just one final thing before we just open this up is, it's just, he says, we're not holding the public hostage. Yes, you are. And then he also just goes, but we're not going to accept the poverty of our members. Poverty of our members, by the way, average income for a train driver is £60,000. So what are they talking about? Poverty? Come on, mate.
This is the interesting thing, isn't it, Leo, that this could be an easy political win for the Prime Minister if he stands up to the unions.
Yeah, but I don't know if he's going to be able to actually break them and stop them striking. I mean, I think there's legal action you can take against people who are striking. I know certain sections of the workforce, such as police officers, aren't allowed to go on strike legally. But, I mean, can you force people? Because, I mean, the ultimate thing is, I remember when I broke my contract with a job and I just walked out of it, they said, you can't walk out. You've on your contract, you've got this time left to work.
It's
and I was like, well, what?
Stripper thing, right?
Yeah, I was like, what are you going to do? Like, fire me? You're going to fire me for not... you can't make me. You can't, like, handcuff me and make me work. But, yeah, I mean, I don't think these strikers have got much of a leg to stand on. The whole country is suffering, particularly hard-working GB News panellists. And they're bailed out by the taxpayer to the tune of £16 billion over lockdown, and ticket sales are down 25%. So it's not as if there's, like, a huge amount of money flowing into the rail network to give them
And they'll
pay
lose
raises.
millions in rail fares this week.
Yep.
You know, so it further sends our rail businesses into the red. You've got a similar story about strikes in The Observer.
That's right, yes. So the strike chaos, it looks like other areas of the public sector are, not that, rail workers are particularly public sector, but they basically are. Other areas of the public sector, the NHS and teachers' unions are looking at what's happening in the rail network and saying, well, we want a piece of that. So there could be a wave of 1970s-style economic unrest spreading across the country from railways to NHS workers and teachers. And they've interviewed some of the teachers. So Andy Lewis, who's a teacher at a sixth form college in Sunderland, says, we've got admin staff saying that they can't afford the transport to come in. And it's like, well, yeah, it's just become a new excuse. Like, I'm sure they can afford, like, £2.50 or whatever to come in and do their jobs, but it's a nice day, so they don't want to come in. Somebody else says, my wife, who's a friend who's a head teacher, last week she had 7 staff off because of the cost of living. It's become the new COVID. You can just get out of any, absolve yourself of responsibility if the sun comes out. Because I've noticed these strikes, they're striking in June when the weather's suddenly become nice and we want to go to the park and have a barbecue and, go for a swim in the sea. Why weren't they striking in February when it was grim outside and you're just stuck inside watching Netflix for the 19th time?
Well, yeah, and the thing is, Josh, you would be of a left persuasion, but you're critical of these strikes.
Well, I'm certainly more critical of the railway strikes. I mean, look, when it comes to the NHS and teachers, you could argue that, yes, they deserve more money. Those are
as do cops.
As do cops, absolutely, as do the police, who haven't had a pay rise for a lot longer than all these other jobs. But then at the same time, part of me is like, teachers have just had like 2 years off for big chunks of it. The NEU was not great, I thought, during lockdown. Their priority didn't seem to be towards children, and children are still suffering.
It was
because
the
of what
opposite because they pushed for school
pushed for longer.
closures.
Yeah, exactly, unnecessarily. I think so. It is a little. I am frustrated towards that, but NHS, they should be getting paid more money, and they need to be earning a decent.
But isn't
living.
the reality that we've got inflation now and the economy's broke? So any yielding to these pay demands will stoke inflation, which impacts the poorest in our society.
I mean, in the 70s and in the Weimar Republic, we're stuck in a wage and price inflation spiral. So as you pay people more money, all of a sudden they've got more money to spend on things. So what the inflationary problems are really caused by supply chain issues and a lack of goods and a lack of energy coming into the market. So hopefully our inflation, even though it's in double digits, it'll be resolved once the energy crisis goes away, once we've vanquished Putin and everything gets back to normal.
But that's going to be about a year and a half. And it is a balance act. But then you look at places who don't have unions, comedians. They've tried to do a sort of union over the years. It's never worked.
Well, you've got a cigar-chomping agent who demands, big bucks.
Big bucks. But the reality is that comedy, it's not even dealing with inflation. I mean, gig rates have just gone down. I mean, they're
the same as they were in the 90s.
but lower now. They're lower than they were.
Yeah, but you're doing the same act as the 90s.
It's true.
What they want is new material.
There's a lot of Diana stuff.
Do we think that the West vanquishes Russia? Do you think that's the inevitable narrative is that Putin will fall?
Yeah, we'll vanquish Russia, and also hopefully we'll start developing alternative energy sources. So we'll open North Sea oil fields, such as the Campbell field, which could be supplying all our oil and petrol needs. We'll get alternative. There'll be liquefied gas sources coming online.
Nuclear buildings and nuclear. I mean, this is more long term, but yeah.
Yeah.
What is your timeline for this war to end in Ukraine, Leo?
I think...
Is it months or years? Because the Prime Minister is reported in the Telegraph, in today's paper, today's Sunday Telegraph, saying, look, we've got to brace ourselves for a long battle here.
Yeah, I mean, it's turned into this war of attrition. But, I mean, both sides are running out of ammunition. Russia's running out of its, more advanced, more accurate missiles, which actually is making the war worse for civilians because they're using inaccurate artillery, which is more likely to hit civilians instead of what it's fired at. Yeah,
indeed. Well, let's hope we can hasten the end of that conflict. But let's now look at another military story, The Independent. It turns out that if you have mass orgies in the military, there are consequences. Who knew, Leo?
That's right, yeah. So the new head of the British Army has cancelled a parachute regiment battalion's deployment to Bosnia and Kosovo following the release of a video, which you might have seen on WhatsApp and Telegram.
I've been trying to find it.
Seemingly showing paratroopers...
I paid $5.99 for it on my credit card. Worth every penny.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, it shows the dangers of having videos. So, I mean, the military police have looked at the video and determined, there's no crime committed. It was all consensual, but it's a bad look for paratroopers to be engaging in an orgy with a red-headed woman. Have you
seen it? Then?
I have seen it.
And how many people are from this? There's 300 people in that regiment.
Oh, there's not 300.
That's not 300.
No, it's not. It's not one of them. Ron Jeremy didn't produce it. It's, but I mean, there's a good few. There's more than I'd feel.
With this one woman.
Yeah, yeah. And apparently it's not just this one incident. She'd been there before. But Sir Patrick, the new head of the British Army, clearly wants to make a stamp and is worried about the reputation of the army. He said it's unacceptable, corrosive, and detrimental to the army's reputation and could be construed to denigrate women. But I mean, some women, some people, sometimes want to be denigrated. And having seen the video, it looked like one of those times.
To you, right, Josh, I know you were hoping to go to the World Cup and commit adultery, but I believe that your plans have been foiled.
It is off. EasyJet has cancelled the flight as well, so there we go.
Yeah, that would do it.
Yeah, so this is in the Daily Star, and basically anybody who is going to go out to the World Cup better keep it in their pants, like the regiment is going to do.
No paratroopers allowed in Qatar.
Yeah, absolutely. Extramarital sex, and we're not just talking about affairs or anything, but if you have any sex outside of being married, you could go to jail for 7 years. That is the law in that country. Obviously, normally, I think is there alcohol, any alcohol? I think in the hotels, sometimes you can get hold of some alcohol. But if you're drunk and out and about, you could also be done for that stuff.
I don't know what the rules are around alcohol, because that would be a money spinner for the big lager brands.
You could definitely drink in the UAE, but I think Qatar is a little bit stricter on that. But certainly if you're found even in the UAE to be drunk publicly, you will go to jail.
Yeah.
Pretty clear that the authorities in Qatar are not willing to go woke for a month.
No, and there's the death penalty for homosexuality. If you're a Muslim under Sharia law. I think if you're a Westerner and you're not Muslim and you go over there and have homosexual sex, you're still in a lot of trouble, but you don't get the death penalty. But yeah, so they don't have the wokest of regimes over there. And this, I mean, the World Cup is really going to expose the hypocrisy of all these woke sports people taking the knee and wearing the pride armbands, because they're going to be taking the knee where hundreds of slaves died building those stadiums, and they're going to be wearing pride armbands, although they probably won't be wearing them in Qatar, in a place where there's a death penalty for homosexuality. It's
contemporary slavery seems to be completely acceptable.
Yeah, yeah. It's so bizarre. The slavery that we could actually do something about and fix is allowed to go unchallenged, and slavery that happened 400 years ago, 800 years ago, is the worst thing.
Yeah, but Leo, £2 T-shirts.
Well,
is all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean...
So sex is off the menu, as well as pork.
Who knew? You said that in a very flirty way, Josh.
The pork.
Could be the same thing.
Our next story comes
how
from...
you eat pork.
You too. Get a room. Family show. This is in the Sunday Times, and who better to explore the psychological makeup of women than our own Leo Kearse.
Well, I thought you were going to say our own woman. I mean, I could have transitioned in the interim. But
You've got a female side, haven't you?
I do. Well, I've got.
I've seen you naked. It's very unusual.
Yeah.
I'm like, have you seen a doctor about
that? A female side. That would give me a limp. But this is actually a really interesting story. So this is about women used to vote more conservatively than men, and now they're voting much more left-wing than men. So back in the polling by JL Partners suggests about 30% of men are set to vote Tory in the next election, compared with 27% of women. Yet 55% of women are going to back Labour, compared with 42% of men. Now, traditionally, women were more likely to vote conservatively because men were in trades unions, so they voted Labour, and women were more religious, so they tended to vote more conservatively. And now that's changing with women in the workplace, and also with the politicization of issues such as abortion. So women are voting in a more liberal fashion. But it's quite nuanced. So, women are more liberal on a lot of modern issues, so they're more likely to think that a transsexual woman is a woman, such as me. But on other topics, they think that 50% of women think there's too much reliance on welfare and benefits in Britain today.
Nazis.
Which is more than men. Only 48% of men think there's too much reliance on benefits.
Men. Yeah, I mean, look, the good news for the Conservatives is that Labour are doing everything in their power to alienate women. So, by going on about how women have penises. So, good luck with that strategy, Labour.
I wonder about the sort of timeline in relation to the trans debate, because my feeling is that it's still a sort of minority discussion at the moment. It's not a mainstream issue for voters, but that's because it hasn't really affected them yet in a direct way. Do you not think the trans debate is still a bit abstract for most voters?
I think that the more that we see the stuff that's happening in sport, the more cases happen, rapes in prison, I think people are becoming much more... Because I think most people, we just go, yeah, sure, trans women are women, and all that, I'll call people what they want to be called. People want to be kind, they want to be good human beings, that's fine. But when you see there are actually instances where we need to debate stuff through, where women are losing their rights, and as it becomes more apparent, I think we are seeing it. They just did a big poll this week, and it's interesting because a lot of people are using the poll to represent different parts of the position. But even in this article, they're saying 48% of women think that trans women are women. But the way that the question was framed, and the person who did the questions actually used to work for Stonewall heading their education. So I don't believe that 48%. For their mind, they're thinking of someone who's been through surgery and has lived as a woman for years. Whereas the reality is 95% of people who identify as trans women are fully intact males, and a lot of them haven't had any hormones or anything like that. They just basically, some of them have beards, and they just wear a skirt and go, I'm a woman.
But there is a thing called out-group solidarity, so discriminated groups feel more solidarity with other discriminated groups, which might explain why women feel more sympathy for transgender women and are more likely to see them as women.
To write a fascinating debate. Well,
we should get some women on this show.
Well, I'm right here.
Sorry, yes, self-identified.
That's transphobic.
Leo's got a female side, don't forget that.
He does have that side.
It runs across his back and then down his nether regions. That's it for part one of the show. Lots more coming up. A man refuses to answer whether he's pregnant, oddly shaped ambulance staff, and the scourge of holiday homes. See you shortly.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GBNews.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
I'm Mark Dolan. Welcome back to Headliners, a first look at tomorrow's papers. Tonight in the company of the dangerously talented Josh Howie and Leo Kearse. Let's go to the Sunday Telegraph now. And just when you thought giving blood was difficult enough, Josh, more bad news.
Yeah, so a man, Leslie Sinclair, 66 years old, he has given 125 pints of blood over the years. And this is in Scotland, by the way, which is the ground zero for gender woo in the UK. And he went along to give blood, and they said, could you tell me whether you're pregnant or not? And he was like, this is an absolutely ridiculous question to ask me. And they were like, well, we're not going to take your blood. And that was that.
Brilliant.
And Professor Mark Turner, who's the director of the Scottish National Blood Transfusion Service, said that whilst pregnancy is only a relevant question to those whose biological sex or sex assigned at birth is female, let's just stop right there. Sex assigned at birth. There's no such thing as sex assigned at birth. There is sex observed at birth for 99.98% of the world's population. It's observed. Willy, vagina. That's it. And it's absolutely ridiculous that this kind of stuff is taking over to that
Can
level.
you not say...
Willy Vagina is a country and western star.
He's an absolute legend. He was in jail for 10 years, wasn't he? I've got his third album.
But yeah, he says those whose biological sex or sex assigned at birth is female. But I mean, if your sex is assigned at birth as female and it's wrong, then you won't be able to get pregnant. So, I mean, he's incorrect saying that. It's purely if your biological sex is female, you can get pregnant.
What terrifies me is that it's now medics who are signing up to this anti-scientific nonsense.
Yeah.
You see it in COVID with, renowned virologists still banging on about lockdowns and surgical masks. Yeah. It's like they're living in a parallel universe.
And also the volume of unnecessary questions that you've got to, and tick boxes you've got to tick when you go through any medical procedure or anything now. It feels like every year there's a couple of extra pages you've got to fill in regarding your gender and your biological sex and whatever it is. It's just expanding. It's expanding. All this stuff is just expanding to take up all our available bandwidth. Yeah. And I think we could save so much time and money if we just got rid of it.
But also, my 5-year-old daughter, she had to get some injection.
Could be a daughter.
Could be a daughter. Well, no, it said put a big pull-down menu.
I've met her and I thought, what is that?
Just this big...
I have to be honest with you.
Produced. That's good to know. I'll tell her when... Thank you. You'll see her tomorrow, by the way, at the farmers market.
Oh, dear, that'll be awkward.
And I would say, look what Uncle Mark...
I'll just say, hello, they, them.
Yeah. But it did ask. It said, what gender does your child identify as? A 5-year-old little girl.
Yeah. Can I before we get to our next story, can I sort of suggest that we actually do die on this hill? Because this poor old bloke, right, for a quiet life, he could have just sort of said, I'm not pregnant and got on with his day. But he decided, no, this is a test case for common sense, a test case for the truth and reality. And actually, isn't it important that normal, clear-minded, right-minded people do die on this hill? Because if you let it go, it is just continuous.
Well, people have been letting it go now for the last 5 years. This is why this pernicious ideology has gotten so far, because it came from a good place of acceptance, whatever. But when it gets into, denying science or impacting upon women's hard-fought rights, we got a problem.
Or if a lesbian is transphobic for not being attracted to a man who identifies as a woman.
Absolutely. And the bullying that's gone along in these issues. The wheel is turning. But I absolutely agree
There was
with
an article in one of the papers about how lesbians were being told that a trans woman's penis is not like a straight man's penis.
Yeah, I saw that.
Well, it's not, because they take hormones and stuff. But, I mean, it's still, you know...
Well, it felt very similar to me.
Send me the video.
But, I mean, the sad thing is somebody is going to die. Somebody is going to die because they're not getting the blood. He wasn't able to donate the blood because of this ridiculous tick box thing. Yeah. And as a result, you know, somebody... That blood's needed for operations.
Although he was a Scottish man, do you want that blood?
I want that blood.
Is this the hill you're going to die on?
That's how we live.
Asking for a friend. Do you want that blood?
It'll go into haggis.
GBNews.uk. The Observer next. And why are so many paramedics odd-shaped, Leo?
I'm not sure if the paramedics are oddly shaped or the new vehicles that they've got aren't the right shape for them. So staff at an ambulance service have claimed they're unable to drive the new ambulances because of their height and body shape. So the East of England Ambulance Service has rolled out, they've spent £54 million on these converted Fiats to replace their previous Mercedes vans, which I think were slightly larger. But apparently 160 staff members have had problems, and of these, 94 were unable to drive the vehicles. So the pedals are too close together, so you can't, like, with your work boots on, you hit all the pedals at once. I mean, this is basically just me in any car, to be honest. But some other issues, back pain, limited space for legs, restricted view of the windscreen, and an emergency responder in the back was severely burned by a heater. So they've got all
Only there was an ambulance there to help.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the fastest anybody's been treated. They were already in the treatment zone. But yeah, like they're aware of the issues and they're working to address them.
But it's people over 5'9". So first of all, they brought out this report saying that they've got to standardise all of the ambulances across the UK, however much that report cost. Then they buy all these things, and then they did all this extensive testing, and then they figured out afterwards, if you're over 5'9", guess what? It's not going to work well for you, and they're not usable.
Yeah. And you want tall first responders. You want somebody who's able to carry you down a flight of stairs.
Totally.
You don't want some, little.
You want Chris Hemsworth, don't you? Not Danny DeVito.
Yeah. Actually, I'd want both of them. Like Danny DeVito can take my feet, and Chris Hemsworth can take my arms.
I'll just take anybody if they would just turn up within a reasonable amount of time.
The other troubling aspect of this story is that they are replacing the vans, and they're now going to be Fiats.
Yeah.
Right? Do you want to die in a Fiat?
Yeah, you want to be in a Mercedes.
It's a terrible way to go, isn't it? Don't you think?
Is this the worst thing about NHS cutbacks?
Yeah.
We've gone from Mercedes to Fiats. We're going to be Skodas pretty soon. Actually, Skodas are good.
I got a Skoda. Skoda's great.
Somebody's obviously bought a Skoda.
I got a Skoda.
Now, what's the ones that are terrible now? They start with D. And it's like £6,000 for a new one.
Well, they're budget rather than terrible, but I think they're called Dacia.
That's right.
Yeah.
Tesla.
Yeah.
They're expensive.
Oh, really?
Well, old Leo Kersel will be driving one of those soon. Don't worry about that. Let me tell you, if he keeps going at this rate. Let's crack on, because it turns out there might be a common condition that partly explains some of the prison population's bad behaviour. Josh, what's going on in jail?
Is that what you call it, bad behaviour?
It's so naughty.
Those naughty prisoners. This sort of seemed obvious to me. I'm surprised that it's taken that so long. But essentially, in the Observer, 1 in 4 UK prisoners, they're saying, have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And that has something, that's affecting you as a young person. Obviously, that would affect you through school. You're not going to necessarily focus. It's going to then affect you as you move out into the real world. It's affecting the prison population because it has, I think you're up to 8 times more likely to commit violence. Part of dealing with this condition. So what they're saying now is, let's test everybody as they go in, which is supposedly quite an easy thing because they're already testing people for mental health issues. Let's add some questions on to see if they have ADHD.
And if they're pregnant.
Yeah, and if they're pregnant as well. That's always a very important thing. And then it is treatable with using therapy and also using medication.
Yeah.
So this could have a really big impact. It can also affect people in terms of them coming out when they come out and recidivism rates and whatever. So it's great. It seems like, how's it taken so long to get to this point?
It seems low. It's just, I mean, they're saying 1 in 4 as a high amount, but I'd have thought rates of ADHD would be much higher. I mean, I think that they're quite high in comedians. I do a podcast with 3 other comedians, and 3 of us, we started talking about ADHD and then decided to get diagnosed because none of us can focus, none of us can, sit down and work unless the deadline's 5 minutes away. Three of them have been diagnosed. I haven't been yet, but I'll get diagnosed as well. And also, we all took the medication, and all of a sudden we can work and we can focus and we can sit still and read.
What's the medication? Speed?
Elvance. But it basically, it feels like
it's meow meow.
a low level
so
of...
pumped up here.
yeah. I'm not on it now.
You're not on it yet?
No.
Okay, fine.
But I've just had a banana. But yeah, it's fantastic. So I think a lot more people in the population have got ADHD than know about it.
Well, I had that too, and I now enjoy a heady mix of chat and meow meow, and I've never felt better. A little bit of Nescafe Gold Blend.
Is that your cat?
Someone who knows his drugs, though.
Whatever happened to meow meow?
No, come on, bring it, but they need to Channel 5
It used to
TV
be
show.
a legal high, didn't it, the meow meow? That would be...
You just like saying meow meow.
It's just gold, isn't it? That would be another terrible way to go, wouldn't it? An overdose of meow meow in a Fiat ambulance.
But you know what? Spice came in and took over. You know
yes,
about Spice?
I do. Can I say, with my acid reflux, it's not an option. Yeah, not at my age, especially not after a Lambuna. Folks, let's head to the Metro now. And bad news for parents wanting to take their kids on term time holidays, Leo, which will be you soon.
Yeah, it will be. Because, I mean, if you take your kids on holiday, when it's school holidays, the holidays are very expensive. So if you take your kids during term time, it's much cheaper to go on holiday. But the government is planning on fining you, issuing fixed penalty notices, which will be £120. I think that's per child. So if you take a couple of kids out, this can add up. Still probably save you the money you're saving on the Airbnb. It's going to be worth it. But it's not just holidays. So parents whose children have had 5 days of unauthorised absences or lateness within one term or are out in public during the first 5 days of exclusion will face the same fixed penalty notice. And I think during lockdown, because schools weren't open, so children fell behind in their work, and also weren't used to going to school. So there's maybe some adjustments to be made in actually attending school. So this is the government. They've done some nudging. Now they're going to hit you with some fines if your kid isn't at school.
Well, I think it's also large that because I think different councils have different rules. So this is sort of ending what they're saying is a postcode lottery as to whether you would get fined or not. I think it's good to have kids in schools. I also think, as someone with a lot of kids and not much money, that makes a difference. You book one day or another day to the side of the holiday, it like halves the price. And when I've got 5 kids, it's been a nightmare trying to book flights or trying to go on holiday, over the before COVID. I don't. It's just frustrating because it feels a bit rich to me, where they're going, yes, it's great. Let's get the kids back in school. At the same time, you're like, well, where was that priority? I don't want to keep on going on about it. It's just that my kids are still suffering the impact of it. They're behind in their spelling and all these basic things.
And you must be angry.
I am angry because it was just so frustrating. Even when the science was coming through, it was like, okay, I got it that first few months, but later on it was like, come on, man. These guys are not, it does not work doing it through Zoom.
And it's patently clear that COVID does not kill children.
Yeah.
End of. I'm not going to caveat it, because in rare... No. COVID doesn't kill kids.
And there are people working in the supermarket. Well, then the teachers could also work. And I know that some schools are open to dealing with some of the... But it was just like, this is actually harming our children. And and like I say, they're still suffering now.
I wasn't that bothered.
Well, yeah. Wait,
No. But now they're going to slap a fine on you if you go on holiday during term time. I don't have this problem because...
Well, would you, because with 5 kids, would you still consider taking them on holiday?
Well,
I think holidays can actually be really educational for kids. You're in a different environment, different languages,
like
different
a sort of strip bar in Vegas would be very eye-opening for a 10-year-old.
Totally. You can go and see...
Learn about gambling.
Drag queen story time. So you're not missing out on any school, really. So yeah, but I remember my mum took us to Greece during term time and I saw an octopus.
Is that right?
Yeah, and, learned about octopuses.
Everything, and here you are now.
Yeah, instead of learning about triangles or whatever they teach you in school.
Yeah, for me, it's just like, let's have a bit of leeway on the day or two before or after holiday.
But we've grappled, I've got 2, as you know, and we've grappled with this issue about, when to go on holiday. What we do, Mrs. Dolan and I, we go away and we leave the kids in the care of a German Shepherd Alsatian called Rusty, which I can highly recommend.
And she takes them to school, Rusty?
Rusty's mildly bipolar, but as long as he gets enough food, he's all right. That's it for part 2. Don't go anywhere because we have saved our best till last. Yes, indeed. We've got stolen bees the purse of Tutankhamun, and the accelerating secularism of the United States. We are a broad church here on Headliners. See you shortly.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping it.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners, a first look at tomorrow's papers with me, Mark Dolan, and tonight in the company of the brilliant comedians Josh Howie and Leo Kearse. Now, have you ever wondered where all of those who died in the Battle of Waterloo's bodies are? Well, me neither, but here's Leo to tell us all about it in the Telegraph.
Yeah, so apparently 50,000 people died in the decisive Battle of Waterloo, which marked the end of the Napoleonic Wars, but they found virtually no remains from the battle, and this really confused historians and scientists.
Yeah.
And they found out, apparently the bones of the fallen soldiers may have been ground down to be used as fertiliser and spread on Britain's crops, according to new research done by the University of Glasgow. And so apparently the bone meal is incredibly good for crops, so they stole.
Yummy.
They stole, and there's grave robbers as well, stealing stuff. But the bones were all brought to feed our crops, and
that was it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that happened after the First World War, that the battlefields of the Somme were the most sort of green and beautiful fields you've ever seen.
No way.
For exactly the same reason, yeah.
No, and that's an actual, it's not just a myth, because I know they say it in Ukraine as well. They say our crops grow so well because they're fertilised with the bones of all the dead people who tried to invade us.
And I've got to say, this is the hilarity about veganism, which is that if you try to go vegan, that's fine, but a lot of vegetables that are grown are assisted by bone meal in the soil, which helps vegetables grow. So even if you're vegan, you can't actually avoid an animal intervention somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
And also Waterloo, I found this out, the Battle of Waterloo wasn't at Waterloo. It was in Belgium at a place called...
Cross, wasn't it?
It was Belgium at a place called Waterloo. We don't know why they named this place in Belgium after a tube station, but... It's a little joke.
Yeah. No, it's fine. That was good. I was just trying to... I was genuinely confused there. I was like... I really don't know my geography.
Leo's telling a joke.
Geography enough. Leo, what?
I'm not used to this.
Sorry. You just tapped me under the table. This is the bit where you laugh, mate.
And it's that level of comedic material for which we pay the big bucks.
Absolutely. That's why he's got that Tesla coming.
Too right, too right. Well, let's move on now. Onto an ethical quandary from the Sunday Times, exploiting children's minds for profit, Josh.
Yeah, but how is this new? So basically, app designers deliberately are manipulating the young kids up, from the age of 4 really, to make purchases or to stay on the app longer. It's like, yeah, that's what they do, but it's like a lot of them are doing, they're calling it dark patterns. This is like what they're doing behind the scenes, which is these manipulative design tricks. And they're sort of saying, you can play with these cute animals for a tiny fee. Ask your parents. That's what a pop-up message is. The worst one, I don't know if you know, those ones where you have to watch this thing for 20 seconds, and then, then they cleverly put the X, but it's not the real X. They're like, and then it takes you through to this other. There's all this horrible stuff they do. You know what? I'm going to go counter here. I'm going to say, and this is as someone who has small children on their iPads. Thank God. It's a good thing. It's a good thing because it teaches them early how these corporations or whoever it is trying to manipulate you. Nothing is free, and you've got to work out how to work around the system to get what you want. So I think it's a good thing.
So are your kids quite wise to it?
That's what I'm saying. They're right. Even the 4-year-olds just figured it all out, how to get rid of this stuff, realise this is all a load, and then they're going to grow up cynical and realising that they're being played, that people want to make money off them.
Just like their dad. Yeah. But yeah, some of this stuff. So the Russian government is using apps, using games. I don't know how they get them onto the phones of children in Ukraine, but so children in Ukraine are using these games where they take photographs of assets, things that could be targets, and they geotag them. Wow. And they don't know that they're geotagging them. And then it's
probably like some Pokemon type game where you've got to go out.
Exactly. And then
so messed up.
And then so the Russian army knows, what assets haven't been destroyed, and where to, bridges and things like that, and where they are. So it's really sinister.
That is amazing. I hadn't heard that before.
Russia aren't the good guys.
Yeah, but I also do respect that level of evilness.
Yeah, and it's weird that that's so sort of well thought out, but the rest of their army is an absolute shambles.
Yeah, that's really crazy.
It's very telling that Mark Zuckerberg doesn't let his kids go on Facebook, and that Steve Jobs did not let his children use an iPad.
Right.
Yeah. Go figure. Moving on now to psychiatry, which I guess is similar to the last story, and it seems neuroticism is on the rise. What is it, Leo?
So there's a new edition of the Psychiatrist's Handbook. It's the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. And it comes out. It's a big, very expensive, quite dry scientific tome.
I've got a copy of it, and the pages are all stuck together.
I'm actually sitting on a copy of it, just trying to get up to Leo's height.
But yeah, despite being this, very dry, very expensive scientific textbook, the latest edition is shot to the top of the bestseller lists. So people are buying this book, and psychiatrists have included, because normally it's only bought by psychiatrists and mental health professionals, but there's a rising interest in mental health, possibly driven by the pandemic. We all sat inside and self-reflected for a couple of years.
It's the worst thing you can do. Never self-reflect.
Yeah, you need to get outside and scream, and not just think about things. But now that we're all worried about our mental health, people are taking interest in all this stuff.
That's it, but it costs £74, and that seems like a lot of money. But if you can, going to a therapist is expensive.
Yeah.
So if you can self-diagnose, then you're saving a fortune.
Yeah, that's about half a session.
Yeah. Is that how much you pay on?
I don't know. I've never gone to a therapist because I'm a real man. I just bottle it up. That's the right way to just get a drinking problem. That's how you should deal with it.
See, my wife's a therapist, so it's like...
Oh, so you get it for free?
Get it for free.
Oh, my God.
Quite good.
But then she knows all your problems.
Well, I would hope that she would anyway. Surely, yeah. It's great.
She might be the source of some of them.
Yeah, but then I see another therapist. So whine about that therapist.
For my mental health, I just go on Russian gaming apps. I find that does buy loads of tokens.
Take photos of Big Ben. Yeah,
that would do it. Big Ben being a good friend of mine. Let's move on now to the Mail on Sunday and a story of the perfect robbery, but one for its notable fatal flaw. Josh.
Yeah, this is a great story. Someone stole thousands of bees, actually 400,000 bees, from this estate in a Cornish country estate. It's 5 hives, so 80,000 bees in each hive. Stole these bees. Guess what? Bees are returning. The bees are going back to the original hives. They built it back to the original place. Like they've obviously got some sort of homing beacon.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But because of that, if it's within a mile, then that they will return back to you. So they know there's probably another beekeeper,
Yeah.
whatever. And like, who else is it going to be? Like, they're sort of saying, it's like, they're like, God, they've worked out. It's like, guys, it's not Poirot. Doesn't need to sort of go,
Yeah, nobody
So
just
who
wants
else
these.
is just going to steal?
Nobody wants these things for the living room.
400,000
You know what I mean?
bees. But how many
The guy walking around in a net, isn't
Well, that's it, exactly. How many beekeepers are within a mile of this estate? Surely that's not that hard to find who's done it. But
And who's got a lot of new bees?
Yeah, absolutely. Your honey has doubled over the last...
Or somebody that looks stung, perhaps.
They're professionals.
Yeah.
They're professionals.
I mean, I guess the lesson is don't steal things that can fly.
Yes.
Because they'll fly back to where they came from.
Would do it. Sweet justice, isn't it? Well, moving on now. Speaking of criminal ineptitude, this gang of lawbreakers seems to be a bit bananas, Leo.
Yeah, well, Czech police have seized over 907 kilograms of cocaine. That would keep us going for a weekend, with a street value of £68 million after it was mistakenly delivered to supermarkets hidden in banana shipments. So workers in several supermarkets across Czechoslovakia, or is it still Czechia? I think it's called now, Czechia.
Yeah, so, Prague and
the Czech Republic. So they found these packages, cubes of cocaine, in banana crates. So someone's in a lot of trouble. You don't lose £68 million worth of cocaine and just get your pay docked. I think somebody's going to be found with, at the bottom of whatever river goes through Czech.
But what I think is funny is, do we know that all the supermarkets actually did turn in their bananas? Like, I'm wondering if the police went to a supermarket and said, "You got these you got these bananas, right?" And they're like, "Yeah, we got the banana. Did you find anything in them?" No, not at all.
You bent.
Don't know what you're talking about, mate.
Exactly. Too right. We'll look on that rather narcotic note. We'll move on to the Mail on Sunday. And Americans stray from God's light with every passing year, Josh.
Yes. I mean, this seems like an amazing statistic to me. 81% of Americans believe in God, although they said here Americans are turning their back on church, so they're not including Muslims or Jews.
Yeah, but they also believe in Joe Biden, which is just silly.
Yeah, but not 81%. So I suppose that's stat, but that is down 6 percentage points from 2017, so the last sort of 5 years or so. That's quite a big drop. But it's amazing to think that, I mean, I know they go on about it all the time, like God this, God that, but they also believe, a lot of them, 68% of those who are between 18 and 29, though, it's gone down 10% in the last. So it's a bigger drop amongst the young, which is what you would possibly accept, because I think they've been replaced with a new religion. Of gender identity. Anyway...
And a sort of leftist wokeism.
Yeah, exactly. But in 1967, they're saying that 98% of Americans believed in God. That's a huge... I mean, that seems like a sort of almost fundamentalist...
Yeah, that's like
figure.
a medieval times figure. It's crazy. But America's always had this incredible faith in itself, and I guess God is a big part of that, even though it's a secular country. And I remember being in America in Times Square. I saw Independence Day. You know the film where Will Smith fights the aliens?
We know Independence Day. We have seen that film many, many times.
At the end, I mean, it's a great film, but at the end, everyone in the cinema started chanting, USA, USA.
That's the genius of that.
Yeah, I mean, America is the real religion, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, Leo, do you think that America is in long-term decline? Because I fear it is.
Sort of yes and no. I think it's definitely going through a phase, a restructure, a social restructuring. I think it could end up going through a sort of enlightenment and, banishing all this sort of wokeism nonsense.
Because at the moment, the woke stuff is killing its great cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco, isn't it?
But there is pushback in San Francisco.
It's not killing. I mean, I think reports of its death are greatly overestimated. I mean, there's a lot more crime and vagrancy and things like that. But I mean, there's a lot of crime and vagrancy in the 70s. These are things you can recover from. And I think it'll end up like dare I say, a more European country.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. But there's one statistic I thought was quite interesting where it said 42% of the people polled believe that God hears the prayers and acts on them, but only 28% think that God hears the prayers and i.e. basically does nothing. So if God is there and able to hear and has the power to at least hear the stuff, do you think, why wouldn't God just answer me? It's an interesting... Do you guys believe in God, by the way?
No, I believe in the human spirit, but I don't know about God.
I believe in God.
I believe in faith.
Okay.
Yeah, and I believe that it's important that all human beings know that they are insignificant, that we are just a temporary blip
Absolutely.
in the wider
They should
universe.
change that.
And what's great about all religions is they all teach you that you are very small and you are very temporary.
Yeah.
And I was raised a Roman Catholic, so I guess I'm mildly religious.
Yeah, I mean, I had my mum to teach me that, so I was lucky, as well as a religion.
Well, that would help.
Yeah.
That would definitely help. Look, we've got a challenge. 3 stories in 3 minutes. Can it be done?
Let's do it.
Classical classicism from Sunday's Metro, Leo.
Yeah, so somebody in the Metro who went to a private school from the age of 11 to 18, it was £30,000 a year, then met some regular people, state-educated people, such as me. Were you state-educated?
No, of course
Oh, you weren't? OK.
Sorry.
Well, you come across very state-educated, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I only say
Your parents wasted that money. But she found out that state-educated people are just normal people. The thing she says is absolutely mad.
Yeah.
So she moved to London to start a master's in journalism, which doesn't seem to come across in this. It's quite badly written. But as she walked into the lecture hall on that first day, I immediately realised how wrong I had been for the first 22 years of my life. Everyone in that room was, I realised, very similar to me. They wore the same high street brands, chatted about the same shows on Netflix, and all perceptively shared the same common interests and ambitions for the future. I mean, what did she think? It's just a school.
But what she probably learned is that those people are better at violence than she is. Because if I witnessed this kind of pomposity, I would be rather
Oh, my
angry.
God, it's amazing. But she also writes, I came into contact with state-educated pupils on holidays and in restaurants. I went to McDonald's once.
Yeah, that was on her. That was her trips to Five Guys.
Yeah.
It's quite shocking, but there you go. The media elite once again. The mask slips, doesn't it? How about this Sunday Telegraph? Petty journalism, legendary consequences.
Yeah, so the origin of the Tutankhamun's curse finally revealed. It turns out it was from a Daily Mail journalist, those Daily Mail journalists, even back then, getting up to naughty stuff. And but the time when the tomb was opened, it basically the Times was given exclusivity, and that really upset this Daily Mail journalist, who then sort of came up with this whole idea of the tomb. Saying all of that, a bunch of people did die in the, and they're saying, and this is what they say for the last paragraph, which is sort of ridiculous, as they go, oh, by the way, a bunch of people did die probably because of bacteria released from the tomb from those first people who went. It's like, why are you leaving that to the last paragraph of this massive story?
Crazy. Speaking of massive, the Star on Sunday is something that we're going to finish on, sex dolls. Well,
So-
Leo, you're going to finish on the sex doll, is that right?
That's right.
Not for the first time.
Well, I mean, they've come a long way, so no pun intended. But sex dolls, when I was a youth, they were this badly. They cost about $5.99, and they were inflatable, and you could cut yourself very easily on the seams. Now they're super realistic, synthetic girlfriends, and this guy, who calls himself YouTube's Hugh Hefner of sex dolls, claims that the secret to his happiness is the acceptance of his horde of synthetic girlfriends, who I hate to break it to him, but they're not real, so they're not accepting you. They're just lying there. But they call him some sort of YouTube superstar, and he's got 200 subscribers.
Yeah, this is great stuff. But I never had the lung capacity for a sex doll. That's my excuse.
I'm at that age where once I'd blown her up, I would probably have a nap on her.
That's good. That's why you want this.
The only fluids on her face would be just dribble from my sleep.
Very nice.
Unnerving.
Yeah, that
It's a shocking image, isn't it? That'll be the last time I speak the truth on this show. Gentlemen, what a brilliant conversation it's been. Do come back soon. The remarkable Leo Kearse and Josh Howie. Thank you for your company. We are back for Headliners tomorrow at 11, and I'm in the hot seat for Mark Dolan tonight. Really busy show. Can't wait to see you then. So keep it GB News. We are here 24 hours a day. Lovely to have your company.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.